There's a perfectly good reason why you self-sabotage. You were not born this way. If you are somebody that identifies as somebody that self-sabotages, if you have thought that you do that, if you have labeled that, if you have judged yourself of that, this video is for you. I'm going to tell you in some simple ways of how you can understand a little bit more what your self-sabotage is doing for you, and a skill that continues to change my life that will support you in gaining some insight and altitude on why you might be self-sabotaging. The reason why I put up the air quotes is because humans are so good at casting labels and judgments and ideas of how we are not measuring up, how we like to label things because the brain wants to understand. But the most important thing to start with is understanding how you became who you are. Humans have an inner operating system, and this is not something that we are educated on. So we don't really understand how we become who we are. You can gain some insight and leverage when you start to understand a little bit more about how you became who you are right now in this moment. Since you came onto the planet, since you were an infant, a toddler, an adolescent, on into adulthood, and really until you leave this world, your brain is constantly making meaning about everything. And when we're young, we're doing that often without any context, without a whole lot of life experience, without a vocabulary. We make those decisions and ideas and choices internally, but we don't know that that's what's happening. But it's what's essentially building your understanding of what does everything mean, what's happening here, what's going on. And it's in reference to the place who you're surrounded by, your culture, your background, all of it supports and is a part of that meaning making. But what's also important to know is that we do have this deference to wrong making, to judging everything about us. And if you are somebody that feels like you self-sabotage, there's a perfectly good reason. There's a part of you that is attempting to protect yourself from something. It could be avoiding something because of unconsciously what you've projected. It could be an idea or something that you unconsciously forecasted that could happen maybe when you arrive XYZ. And the part of you right now is like trying to hold you back. I don't want to define it for you. My point is that there is a perfectly good reason. And when you understand a little bit more about your inner operating system and choose to see yourself from a social scientist point of view, this is not something that we're taught, but it is a gateway to having a more compassionate, a more broader, it'll help you gain a level of understanding about yourself and support you in having some altitude. In actually, when you can start to see things from different points of view, that gives you some leverage. And that your inner operating system is essentially what you believe is your truth, your reality. It's the lenses that you look at your life through. And if you don't understand that that's how you became who you are right now, then you won't question it unless somebody like confronts you, unless something happens. We're living in a world where we have a lot of people walking around, actually everyone walking around with some idea of what they think is okay, not okay, right, wrong. And most of that was determined unconsciously. So if you feel like you self-sabotage, I just want to encourage you to recognize that there is a perfectly good reason. And the opportunity that you have is to start to do some inner inquiry with a level of neutrality. Neutral observation is a skill and a practice that I learned over 20 years ago, and I have been practicing. Initially, it was very intentional. There was a whole practice attached to it. Now it's very much part of my modus operandi because it's a muscle that I've been pumping for a very long time. And now it allows me, not always instantaneously, but it allows me to step into the observer role of any situation and of my own experience. And when you start to decide to see your life with some level of altitude and being that observer, you will start to see things. You will see patterns. You'll get information. You'll get data from that practice. And it will help you understand more what might be underneath that. What's precipitating this potential inclination to self sabotage? I'll share with you briefly, I'll share with you a little bit more how you can practice neutral observation because it's in many ways, it's pretty simple and it is something that you need to practice in order for it to really have the dividends. And the best way that I learned and has helped me and changed my life because it's given me a new way of looking at my life versus being in kind of a reactionary mode because that's typically what we've learned and what we've observed is like our nervous system is always kicking in from all that meaning making we did and it's attempting to protect us, but it's not having any conscious critical thinking. It's just going off of that fight flight stress response. And because the world is so busy and everything's always happening, we don't always have, unless you're someone who's very deliberate, you likely aren't sitting down going, okay, why do I do that? What happened? What might be the reason why? All of that way of relating with yourself isn't something that most of us have been taught. So it isn't common to do that. Instead, we might be stuck in the experience of the sabotaging. So you get a journal. It's really helpful if you write this out, but you get a journal or a notebook of any kind and you have it by your bedside. And every night, even if it's like 3 or 4 times a week, but you need to have a consistent practice, you just literally answer the question, what did I notice today? It's really about yourself. What did I notice today about myself? What happened today? So, for example, it might be like how your day got started, or when you were commuting to work, you were easily triggered by something that you heard, or when you were having an exchange with your partner or your child, you felt a sense of fear around something. Or when you met this person, you got really inspired, or you're reading this book and you started having this dream about something. All of it, all of it is data and insight about you. What's really important is that you don't try to evaluate it. You don't want to make meaning because there's a part of our brain that's like a predictor. And if you apply that rote response of let me decide right now what this means, let me make a story out of it, let me judge it, you're just going to keep manufacturing. You're going to it's like kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the opportunity is just to collect data, is just to notice. And over time, but even after 21 days or 30 days, you will start to see some patterns and trends because that's what data will give to you. It'll give you information and insight. And what happens when you start to have these awarenesses was, first of all, when you start a practice of neutrally observing, any kind of dedicated practice like that, even if it was like meditation or going for a walk, anything that you dedicate some time to, you're going to start having an awareness of shifting and changing, of expansion that's happening. So when you choose to do a practice of neutral observation, you're going to start to see these things that I mentioned in yourself. And if you choose to commit to being neutral, being compassionate, then you can start to look at the trends and patterns and ask yourself, okay, what am I learning about myself? What is something that tends to happen? And when you start to gain that insight about yourself, you're going to see things like, oh, when this happens, this really helps. This is a very life-giving activity, this thing or this person or this event. Or when I'm around, when I do this type of work, I get really drained, whatever it is. But those awarenesses become the insight, and there's more to do you can do. Stick around and you'll learn more things from the things that I'm sharing. But ultimately, I want you to know that you have a powerful divine intelligence in you, and you will start to know what to do. You will start to ask deeper questions. You will start to seek support. You will start to take that insight to the next level because when you are dedicating time, like I mentioned a moment ago, into a practice for yourself, you are also like the the impact of that, the benefit of that is that you are pouring into yourself. It's like, for many of us, it's like doing chores. We don't want to do them, but once we do them, we're like kind of high from like getting stuff done. Or Maybe like I know I can experience it when I cook for myself. I feel like, wow, I've done a really nice thing. I've just spent some time cooking good, healthy food for myself. So that's just what's going to be happening. And that I'm not saying it's going to happen every moment. Sometimes you're going to see things and you're going to, you know, reactively judge yourself. But if you continue with the practice, then that practice will start to fill you. It'll start to like, it pays dividends. It's filling the tank of your self-esteem, of your commitment to yourself, and that will lead to next steps. One last thing I wanna share is that a lot of the things that we do that we kinda wish we didn't do or that we see as, like, a protective practice or something that it's like a way that you maybe interrupt yourself or a way that you potentially sabotage yourself. There is a secondary gain. There's a secondary gain. And when you can also identify that secondary gain, it can also be insight into what's happening here. And a secondary gain can be kind of some things that I shared in the beginning that might be part of it, where it's like it might be about protecting you from something. It might be that you don't have to really put yourself out there, or it could be that you don't feel like you're prepared to have this kind of experience or exchange or relationship. And so you sabotage yourself to remove yourself from that actually even happening. But there's always a secondary gain, and that secondary gain can be really powerful insight what's underneath that self-sabotage. But what's so, so important, I can't stress this enough, is like the wrong making that we do. Like, for example, judging that you're self-sabotaging and feeling bad about it, or judging yourself for that, or making yourself wrong about that. That is a natural coping mechanism that is attempting to support you. That is your own inner operating system trying to take care of you. And why it's so important to watch that wrong making is because you essentially like it's difficult to see things and to shift them and to heal them and to look at them if we go into it with judgment, because you kind of close the door on the access. When you go into judgment, you get stuck there. You can get stuck at it's like a dead end. So being mindful that the reason why you feel like you self-sabotage is because you've heard that this is a phenomenon, this is a thing that's been defined in the world. It's because humans do this. And there's perfectly good reasons. It's not a character defect. It's not a character flaw. It's a coping mechanism. And when you can have more compassion for yourself and recognize this is just part of your human experience, then you can get underneath it. Then you can shift it. Then you can create something different. Neutral observation, skip the wrong making, identify that secondary gain, and just be curious. When you choose to be curious, that's why you'll hear me say this a lot, like being a social scientist, choosing to be a social scientist can give you just enough altitude and support in creating something new and how you understand yourself, how you relate to yourself. And when that shifts, your whole life shifts because you're no longer living in these like absolutes that you might be living in right now. When you gain a level of awareness, then you open up the capacity for you to expand with it. I hope this was useful. If you are a woman that is really on your growth path and is really wanting a level of support to look at things like this and to expand, or you're in a place of transition, or you're just so aware of something shifting in your world and you know the benefit, you know the value of having another person that's not in your life support you in that. There's more information. There are links in my bio. I do private advisory sessions one-on-one with women. You can find the link in my bio, and there are some other resources there. I hope you'll stay here with me. I will see you tomorrow.